everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's Preptober video, I wanted to talk about whether to plot or to pants. It is a very difficult question for some, especially for new writers who don't really know their own style and how their own writing process works yet. So today I wanted to go through some of the pros and cons to both sides and see where it goes from there. If you didn't watch my last video, I covered the major lingo in and around NaNoWriMo, and two of the words I covered were a plotter and a pantser. So definitely check those out. I've put the link below or up in the corner, whichever corner it goes to, I don't know. If you don't remember, a plotter is someone who plans out and outlines everything before November and then gets started writing from their plan, basically, on November 1st, whereas a pantser will write by the seat of their pants. A pantser might have a general concept or idea or even a couple of characters they want to work with. They generally don't outline beforehand. Pros and cons of both sides. Plotters always kind of know what they're going to write. They know the story. Depending on their plotting process, they may already know the ending or already know, the middle. They know what they need to do. That's a very helpful tip for me, to be able to sit down one day and just like, okay, I don't have to think. I just have to envision the story. Here's my outline. This is what I need to focus on and envision in my head. And then I just describe it on the page. And to be able to do that and not have to sit there and think, well, gee, what happens next? And it's much easier for me, but that's because I'm a plotter. So having that pro works. The downside to plotting that I see is a lot of people will sometimes get to the point where they've over plotted and there's no discovery in it. So when it comes time to sit down and write, it becomes more of a chore. That's a downside. That's a con to plotting. Pantsing can be very fun. It can be very organic. The story can kind of come to life. As a writer, you're kind of being surprised by the story as a reader might while you're writing it. The con for me for pantsing is that a lot of times I will come up and I will say, it's time to write and it's time to sit down, and I look at where I've left off and I'm like, I can't remember what was happening next, and I can't, by that point I might be so tired from being up all night writing or being up with the kids all night, or all the day-to-day stuff can really affect my writing mood. And so not knowing what's right next can really be a difficulty for me. And so I find that like sitting down and pantsing to be very hard to do because I just get stuck in this, well, I don't know what's right next. My experiences with plotting and pantsing, I've had both good and bad experiences with both sides. And really, whether to plot or whether to pants really comes down to your own personal writing style. Just like everything else with writing, it is so individualized. You really just have to try it. If it works for you, great, stick with it. If it doesn't work for you, don't sweat it. Find something else, try something else, and keep going. There is no one tried and true way to write a book. So here's the thing. Both ways work and both ways don't work. It really does depend on you. So my first NaNoWriMo, I found out about NaNoWriMo on November 1st, 2008. And I had no idea what it was about. I came across it on LiveJournal. For those of you who are older and may know that, that's where I came across NaNoWriMo. First heard about it was on a LiveJournal post from another writer, and it was November 1st, and it was, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna jump in and do this, and I opened a Word document and I started right then. And that was probably not a great idea. I was 2 months out from my wedding, and so I was insanely busy. I did not have a job, but I was busy with all the wedding prep. I wrote a whole 1,500 words that year, my first Nano. I went in, I completely pantsed it. I didn't have any idea about the story. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. I'd written some in the past. It was still very much a hobby. And it was a hobby that I was coming back to after not really writing during college. 1,500 words, that first Nano, I called it a win for me, even if I didn't get the win from the site. It got me back into the whole writing scene. 2009, I came back and I thought about Nano the entire year, pretty much. I thought about what story I wanted to work on. I kept working on the story I had started in 2008, which I still have not completed to this day. It was just not in the books. Maybe someday I'll come back to it. But I decided, well, I'm going to get prepared this year for 2009. And I started that summer working on the snowflake method for a new book. And I went through and I did about half of the snowflake method, which if you haven't heard of the snowflake method, I'll link it down below, but it was very detailed and I can't even describe it right now. It's very methodic. You go down and you keep breaking it down, your idea, and over and over and over again until you have a full fleshed out outline. And I did that, and I also decided to handwrite that year, which was probably not a good idea. I still did not win Nano 2000. It was 2009. I did meet some amazing writing friends that year, Sarah Cannon, Eric Reeder. The list goes on. That's when I really kind of went out and met with my region, and I got more involved with my region starting that year. 2010, again, I tried to plot. I felt like all those early years for Nano for me were all about experimenting and trying to find what worked and what didn't work. And so 2010, while I hit the 50,000 goal, I really didn't have a cohesive story. I did plot a little bit, but it wasn't very in-depth, and I did not plot enough. I kind of hit the end of my story before I hit the end of the 50,000 words, and so the last like 10,000 words were just pretty much gibberish of the characters just interacting, and it wasn't complete, really. Again, it was all about discovery in those first years, and I feel like by the time 2012 rolled around, I had kind of come up with all these different ideas. 2012 was hard because I wanted to write a story, and it just wasn't coming together. I was pregnant, I had pregnancy brain, and it just, the story I'd wanted to write would not work. And I had planned it out, and so about a week into Nano, I just started pantsing. I was just like, I came up with a new idea. It all started with a character, and I did not win Nano that year, 2012, but I did find a story that was amazing. And I found these characters that I absolutely loved. And that year, I think the story, I had called it The Claiming of Jack Frost or something like that, or How I Met Jack Frost. It was kind of cool because that story has now turned into my book that I am getting ready to publish called Frostbite. And the character was Reese he's a vampire, and Jack becomes his human servant. And that's kind of sparked this amazing journey I'm going on, which is the new series that I'm getting ready to publish next year. And it's just an amazing story. And so what I did end up doing was, even though I didn't win Pantsing 2012, I spent the year plotting and getting that story worked out, so that way when I went back to 2013, I had it all laid out and I plotted it. I wrote it all through. 2013, I had a 7-month-old. I won Nano, and I won it a week early, which was just amazing in my books. I was just like, I was so focused, and it worked. So, like, pantsing and plotting, they kind of go hand in hand, and you really just kind of have to go with the flow and see what works for you. Another plotting success I had was in 2014. I had plotted out a sci-fi novel, and I was really into it. The story was amazing. I was coming off, I I had just found Firefly and I had watched it all, and I was very upset when I reached the end of Firefly and found out there was no more, and was very disappointed in the Serenity movie. And so I was like, well, I can write a better book than this. So for 2014, I tried to write Searching for the Stars, and again, I got about, oh gosh, I don't even remember how far I got into it. It wasn't very far at all. It was only maybe 5,000 words or 6,000 words, and I just could not do it, and I did not win that year. No matter how in-depth I had planned out this novel, it just did not work. 2015 comes around, and I was determined to write this sci-fi, so I had changed things up. I did a phase outline, which is, I think, even more in depth than a snowflake method. My outline came to be 15,000 words, but I had changed a few things. I did the outline. I came back for 2015 and I won. And I did have, it was a very close call. I ended up writing 6,000 words on the last day of Nano, but I won. But like I said, so it's all about finding your groove and making it work for you. Whether you're an outliner or a pantser or somewhere in between, you're still trying to find your way, just keep trying. Some of my favorite outlining methods are the phase method. I'm currently in the middle of reading a book called Take Your Pants Off, which is all about outlining and kind of working from the character's internal struggle, which is something I have a hard time with right now. So that's something I've been reading a lot about. I've been reading Save the Cat Writes novel and any of the Save the Cat books. Those are really great. So there's a ton of craft books out there. So go read, go study, see what works for you. If it doesn't work for you, keep trying, keep looking, keep reading, keep studying the craft. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of rambly. Let me know in the comments below if you are plotting or pantsing this year for Nano, and if you are plotting, what methods are you using to plot? I will see you in a few days, and I hope you have a great one. See you next time. Bye. I forgot to do the whole like and subscribe. Probably made it worse.